Okay, so good morning and welcome to another lecture. This time our topic is on basic financial risk management for education. I think this is the second to the last topic based from our course syllabus. So the objective of this lecture is to introduce to you the fundamentals of financial risk management, focusing on understanding, identifying, and mitigating different types of financial risk that may affect educational institutions or programs. Okay, so examples for educators, school overinvest, example of financial risk for educators. We have the school overinvestment in a new curriculum platform that fails to gain traction. So we invested on curriculum platform, but then again, there are no takers. And another example is a teacher's pension fund, which is impacted by a market downturn. Like, for example, our GSIS, that's a pension fund, but because of financial problem or market downturn, then our pension might be affected. Okay, that is hypothetical, of course. I do not want to give you that, that the GSIS will soon fail. No, that is my example is hypothetical. Okay, so many schools and universities seek to enhance the learning outcomes by adapting digital curriculum platforms. So this is an example for number one. Like, for example, during the time of pandemic, we invested on LMS or adaptive learning systems or sometimes AI tutors. And these solutions often promise personalization, engagement, and data insight. So ano yung naging problema dito? Bakit siya isang example, classic example of a financial risk? Okay? For example, yung school allocated a significant portion of its technology budget to adapt this kind of curriculum, yung mga software, like for example, sa school natin, we are buying software kasi bawal gumamit ng hindi lisensyadong software. Okay, so we also invested in sa staff training and of course infrastructure kasi it's not only about the software but it is also about the hardware. Okay, so what are the hardware you need to establish before you can operate the software properly? And then of course there are training for staff members. Okay, so ano yung nangyari? Ano yung naging problema? Okay naman, di ba? We allocated significant fund for the LMS to adapt to the new technologies in education. At bakit nagkaroon ng problema? Number one, they failed to involve the key stakeholders during the procurement or pilot phases. Basta bumili yung admin. Okay, so siguro, of course, yung admin naman, they have the in charge in IT. But of course, in charge in IT should coordinate with the different stakeholders like the teachers, the students, and the experts. Okay, so isang problema yon. They failed to involve the key stakeholders in the university prior to the procurement. Okay, para yung mga specifications needed by the teachers will be incorporated in the software that they will be procuring. And that's one problem. Another problem is during time of pandemic, may mga ganyang eskwela nag-invest. But they experience poor adoption due to complexity, lack of relevance to syllabus, and of course, yung mga technical bugs. Okay? So poor adoption of the technology. And then another is yung mga estudyante revert to traditional methods, or yung teachers circumvent the platform due to usability issues. Diba? During the time of pandemic, many do not use the technology provided by the university. Okay? And of course, the students, because of complex issues like wala silang gadget, poor ang internet connectivity, etc. So kaya naging failure yon. So yun yung mga issues, no? Doon sa example natin, number 1. Of course, yung sinabi ko kanina, Teachers Pension Fund, because of market downturn, in other countries may collapse sa kanilang market. So, and therefore, your pension fund, whether the teachers are government employees or private university or in private universities, when the market is affected, then the pension fund can also be affected. Okay, parang nangyayari sa SSS o kaya sa PhilHealth, no? Pero ito naman pension fund. Okay, so similar to that scenario. Okay, so what are the types of financial risk? So based from literature, we have market risk, credit risk, liquidity risk, operational risk, and reputational risk. Okay, so although we will be discussing this one by one, ito yung description niya, no? Market risk, loss due to market volatility. Okay? So pag may problema sa market, sa economy, then market risk yun. So ang example dito, school endowment declines in value during recession. So when there is a recession, endowment value ng eskwelahan bumababa. And therefore, if the school is dependent on the endowment fund, pag walang nagbigay because of recession, may problema sila. Okay? And then credit risk, counterparty defaults on payment. So school gives credit to parents for tuition and they default, so hindi nakakabayad, di ba? So, credit risk yan. So, this is a problem of many private universities. Sa mga issues naman, since the tuition is free by RA 10931, so wala kami problema dito sa credit risk. Okay? Liquidity risk, so difficulty in converting assets into cash. No? So, halimbawa, marami kang, example dito, school owns land but can't sell it quickly for urgent cash. Halimbawa, may recession nga. And then nagkulang kayo ng cash, okay? But you have the asset, the physical asset, you have the building, the land, etc. But you cannot sell your asset. So yun yung problema ng liquidity risk. Okay? So dapat liquid, sabihin may available cash ang university. Okay? So hindi lang siya physical asset. Then operational risk, losses due to internal failures or mismanagement. Okay, so many are experiencing this. Example ito, fraud in financial aid distribution. So pwede yan, operational risk yan kasi may internal failure, no? So halimbawa, may nanloloko kaya may nagsa-siphon ng fund. Okay, so operational risk yun. This is due to mismanagement. And then reputational risk. So this is damage to reputation impacting funding or impacting enrollment. Okay, so ito struggle ito ng mga maliliit na university o kaya new university. So may reputational risk o kaya may skandalo na nangyari sa university. So that is reputational risk. Okay, so misuse of funds leading to loss of donors. Sabi nyo, your reputational risk, bakit siya naging financial risk? Because we are talking here of mismanagement or misuse of funds, and therefore, yung mga donors who are supposed to be donating, nawala yun. Okay? And therefore, affecting the financial operation of the university. Okay? So let us proceed to the discussion on market risk. Okay? So ano ba yung sinasabi natin dito sa market risk? Okay? So market risk refers to the potential for financial loss due to fluctuations in market variables such as equity prices, interest rates, or foreign exchange rates. Okay? Like, for example, meron kang dollar in the past, ano ba, dollar 58, 59, now 55.4 na lang. Yesterday, that's 55.4. So you are affected by foreign exchange rate. So it is good for export. It is good for import, but not for domestic. No? So in education institutions, particularly those with large endowment or investment portfolios, market risk can significantly impact financial stability and of course strategic planning. Kasi kung mataas, for example, ang interest ngayon ng mga bangko, then definitely if you are planning to make a loan, hindi mo yan gagawin ngayon. O kung gagawin mo ngayon, ang taas ng interest, so makamahirapan ka na mabayaran yun, diba? So yung common scenario dito involves the depreciation of school or university endowments during economic downturns or during recession. And then what is the effect nito? It limits the available funding for scholarship, of course, faculty positions or faculty trainings or faculty development, and of course the capital projects. So you cannot construct a building because of this market risk. Kasi kung mangungutang ka ngayon, if you are going to make a loan at 9% or 12% interest, so that is high, okay? Kasi normal interest ng mga bangko 6 or 7%, kung naging 12% yan. So it would be difficult for the university to pay for the loan, pay for the interest, okay? Yung market risk na sinasabi natin dito, this is, we make the institution vulnerable, and the cause of that vulnerability is external to the institution, sa market na siya, no? Sa economy, okay? So, ang example dito, yung 2008 global financial crisis. I do not know whether you felt the global financial crisis. Upon the first global financial crisis, when there was recession that affected us was the 1998. Kung buhay na kayo during that time, but it really affected. Imagine from 25 peso per US dollar naging 50. Okay, so that's how the economy was affected. The dollar became very strong. Ngayon, strong ang peso natin. Kaya nga, maganda siya sa domestic. Maganda siya but it is not good pagka mag-i-import kayo, no? Mag-i-import kayo. Okay? So, dito, ito example sa US, no? Many US colleges and universities experience sharp declines, okay, in their endowment value. So, for example, yung Harvard University's endowment, they lost approximately 11 billion. Okay, 11 billion or nearly, this is equivalent to 30% of its value in a single year. And this is according to Harvard Management Company in 2009. And then, ano yung effect nito? No? So, this decline forced the institution to implement budget cuts. And of course, when you implement budget cuts, there are a lot of activities in the university, including support to foreign students, maapektuhan yon. So, there were hiring freeze and, of course, delay infrastructure projects. So, ganun din yung nangyari sa smaller institutions that relied, heavily on investment income. They also face existential threats and in some cases nag-merge sila or nagsarado na lang. Okay, so this is how yung mga economic downturn are affecting the universities, particularly private universities. Okay, so later on, magbibigay tayo ng example sa yung Philippine scenario. Okay, so ito across the globe naman siya. Pagka global financial crisis, it is affecting the all countries in the world, and this is the result. So pag may budget cut, less ang students who will be accepted, and of course sa capital outlay, no? So mga infrastructure projects o kaya mga laboratory projects, nawawala yon. Okay, umuunti. Hindi naman nawawala, pero umuunti. Okay? And then of course, sabi natin dito, private institutions. But you know, public institutions are not included. Okay? So kasi state-funded schools, they often see reduced state appropriations during recessions. No? And this is compounded by declines in their investment holdings. No? For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, many universities reported investment losses in the first 2 quarters of 2020, prompting emergency budget reviews and tuition policy changes. Pero sa akin, yung mga investment losses, well, kung mayroon kang income-generating projects, like for example, in my former university, meron kasi kaming mga area for rent. Actually, may department store, supermarket kami na pinare-rent. And because of pandemic, they are requesting for, sabi nila, baka possible, huwag na kami mag-rent for during this time of pandemic, o kaya we'll just pay 50% because we don't earn. Diba? So that is also affecting the income generating project of the university. Okay, so sa mga investment natin. Well, as in the case of in the Philippines, wala namang big investment, wala namang maraming investment ang mga universities. For example, kung mayroon kayong space for rent, walang nag-rent. So, loss yon on the part of the university because of the pandemic. And therefore, because of that, you have to review your plan. Okay? So, if you, in the program of receipts and expenditure, your income for that specific income-generating project is included to support one development project. Ngayon, because of we don't have income for that, definitely it will not be funded, no? Or you have to reprioritize the projects of the university. Okay. So, what are the strategies to manage the market risk? Okay, so well, we can adapt. No, education institutions can adapt to various strategies in order to manage the market risk. Okay. So, pwede diversifying endowment investments across asset classes like yung equities, yung fixed income, or real estate. Okay, so allowed naman as long as it is approved by the board. Like for example, what we did, meron kaming time deposit of our dollar account in my former university. Okay, so kahit na may COVID, it is still earning. Of course, yung interest ng mga bangko before was also affected by COVID. Pero you have to diversify the endowment investment across asset classes. Number 2 is using financial hedging like derivatives. Okay, and then maintaining reserve fund. It is important, and this is maintaining reserve fund is important for liquidity. No, dapat meron kang cash. Sabi natin kanina, market risk, yung wala kang hindi ka liquid. Meaning lahat ng pera mo naka-invest sa property, pero wala kang pera sa bangko. Importante yun. Kahit sa ating personal, di ba? So we are investing, pero dapat meron kang cash. Okay? So importante yun. Dapat ay cash. And that is reserve fund. For example, sa university, it is provided by a certain CHED circular that 20% of your income, income galing sa tuition fee, should serve as a reserve fund. Okay? So that will be para doon sa liquidity of the organization. Pwede rin yung long-term investment committees and adherence to long-term investment. Okay? So long-term investment, halimbawa meron kang time deposit yan, pwede 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, pwede yon long-term investment na yun. Okay? Basta ang mahalaga doon, dapat liquid. Okay? And then of course, yung prudent investor principles, adherence to prudent investor principles, no? This is to help mitigate exposure to short-term volatility. So ito, understanding and managing, you have to manage the risk. Hindi pwede na hindi ka naman nag-risk. Okay? So these risks are existing. But the thing is, you have to understand the risk and you have to manage the risk. Okay? So any academic institution, any organization, meron niyang mga risk in the operation, no? An investment, but you have to understand the risk and manage the risk. And this is critical for educational leaders to ensure continuity and resilience, especially in times of macroeconomic uncertainty. Okay? Importante yan that you know, that you understand the finances of the organization. And you have to have a strategy on how to manage the risk. In this case, the market risk. Okay, so examples of market risk in the Philippine education sector. So meron akong ano dito, apat, no? Yung huli, this is a specific example sa UP endowment funds. Okay, so yung number 1, COVID-19 pandemic and economic recession. So accordingly, during the pandemic-induced recession, kaya nagkaroon ng recession because of pandemic, over 860 private schools in the Philippines suspended operations, no, due to falling enrollment and financial instability. Okay, so private schools, and this is according to DepEd 2021. Kasi nga, kung wala silang estudyante, tapos continue pa rin yung operation nila, magbabayad sila sa teachers, magbabayad sila sa utilities. So they opted to, they decided to stop the operation during the pandemic. So the root cause was, you know, alam natin, pinag-aaralan natin, market-wide economic contraction and job loss, no, which significantly reduced household disposable income. So leading to lower tuition collections. Pwede namang gusto naman ng estudyante, students would want to go to school, di ba? However, yun nga lang, pag ikaw yung administrator, parang wala ka namang puso pag sinabi nila na, ma'am, I can only pay 25% of my tuition. Okay? So, hindi sila makaka-full tuition, baka hindi mo pa nga masingil yung committee. Okay? So, kapag ka ganito, hindi siya direct investment loss, ano, pero it is a manifestation of market risk because of economic volatility. Okay? So, yan, during the COVID-19. Yung number 2, peso depreciation and imported educational materials. I think nagkamali yung start ko sa pag-transfer, no? But this is peso depreciation and imported educational materials. So, in 2018 and again in 2022, nag-depreciate ang peso natin against US dollar even up to now. Kasi if I remember it right, mga 20 before the pandemic, parang 50 lang ang US dollar. One US dollar equivalent to 50 pesos. Pero ngayon, umabot na siya ng during the pandemic, parang umabot siya ng 54, tapos recently umabot siya ng 59, yesterday 55. Okay? So, ano yan, nagdi-depreciate. Pag tumataas ang value ng dollar against peso, our peso is depreciating. Okay? So, education institutions that relied on imported digital content. Kamali nga siya, nadalawa niya itong number 2. Okay? Digital content. Ano siya? Yung mga lab equipment and foreign services. So they increased, no, yung they they saw the increase in the operation cost, no? While revenue in peso remained constant, diba? So ito, nagre-reflect ito ng currency-related market risk, especially for an internationalized public schools, okay? Number 3 is tuition freeze policy and inflation pressure. Again, this was during the time of pandemic, no? So sabi ng CHED-DepEd, they implemented tuition freeze in the tuition fee increase, no? However, yung inflation naman surge in 2022 to 2023. So tumaas ang bilihin, no? So the schools experience real income erosion. So nawala na talaga kasi parang hindi sila maka-increase ng tuition fee pagkatapos nag-inflation pa, tumaas yung presyo ng bilihin, tumaas ang kuryente, tumaas ang tubig, tumaas ang utilities. So tumaas yung presyo ng lahat. So ibig sabihin wala ka nang increase sa income mo. Kung income mo before is 50 million, pareho pa rin yung income mo ngayon, pero ang cost mo dati ay 45 million, ngayon mga 48 million. So ano na lang yung difference? Parang 2 million na lang yung kinita mo instead of 5 million. So ganun yung sa madaling kwenta. That is that happened during the pandemic. Okay? And then yung last natin, yung University of the Philippines Endowment Fund. Ano po nangyari dito sa UP na to, no? So kasi UP system maintains investment accounts, okay? Including yung UP Foundation and Oblation Fund. So ito, of course, yung UP Foundation kasi and Oblation Fund, while it is in UP, I think it is semi-private. And of course, yung Foundation and Oblation Fund, these are exposed to market fluctuations. Okay? So while this is less publicized, these portfolios are managed through trusteeship arrangements and may be affected by Philippine stock or international market terms. Okay? Especially if funds are held in equity-linked instruments. Okay, so naapektuhan yan. So siguro kayo, when you invested your money during time of pandemic, maka-affected din. Okay, so in summary, ito yung market risk at ito yung effect, no? So yung institutions, yung private schools during COVID-19, peso depreciation, tuition freeze, and inflation. Then yung UP Foundation, ang market risk niya, economic volatility, yung peso depreciation, currency risk, tuition fee, inflation risk, UP Foundation investment risk. So, an effect enrollment and revenue drop, increased cost of imported materials, real income loss, and then possible market-linked portfolio declines. Okay, so ito yung nangyari during yung case natin dito sa Philippines. Okay, so that is market risk. Okay, so punta naman tayo. Let us proceed to the discussion of credit risk in education institution. And this refers to the potential financial loss that arises when students, parents, or other counterparties fulfill their financial obligations. No, most commonly the payment of tuition fees or service contracts. Okay, so this risk, especially relevant, of course, in private schools and universities where tuition is the primary source of revenue and where deferred payment schemes, di ba? Bawal nga, may batas nga na bawal mong hindi pa kunin ng exam ang estudyante, no? So ito, pagka your school is the your school is dependent primarily on the tuition as your source of revenue, and then kapag ka na-deferred yung payment or installment plans, then may problema ka na, no? So, yun sinasabi natin dito sa credit risk. So, ang example nito, yung credit, yung clear illustration of credit risk is when school extends credit by allowing parents to pay tuition in staggered terms. Diba? So, hindi siya full payment at the start of the enrollment. Tapos, na-experience yung university ng widespread default, no, due to unexpected financial shocks. No? For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, we all know naman that many Filipino families lost income nila or employment, leading to high tuition delinquency rates across, private basic education schools and even in tertiary schools. Okay. So yung report of the Coordinating Council of Private Educational Association, or COCOPEA, noted that thousands of families were unable to pay tuition on time, leading to operational stress for many private institutions. So some schools had to reduce faculty, they cut programs, or temporarily suspend operations due to severe cash flow disruptions. Okay? So, hindi lang yun, no? So many colleges enter into, partnership with private lenders or scholarship foundations that guarantee tuition payment. So, if these partners face financial issues and fail to remit the pledged funds, the institution bears the cost. Which is another form of counterparty credit risk. Okay, so may credit risk ka because you allow yung staggered payment, hindi naman nakabayad. Tapos kung nag-engage ka pa doon sa private lenders or scholarship foundations that promise to collect and then pay to you, tapos hindi sila nakabayad, another form of counterparty credit risk. Okay, so sa ibang bansa, of course, hindi naman tayo nag-iisa. So all countries in the world experience this. Okay, so they also reported high levels of unpaid tuition and face long-term financial strain and often need to increase collection budgets or write off bad debts. Okay, so yun ang ginagawa nila if they had loans. Okay, so to mitigate yung credit risk, institutions implement upfront payment discounts, tuition insurance offerings, stringent credit evaluation before installment approvals, third-party collection agencies, and third-party collection agencies. Okay, so ito yung mga mitigating measures nila, no, to somehow reduce the risk, yung credit risk na tinatawag natin. Okay, so we have the market risk and we have the credit risk. Next is the liquidity risk. Okay, so yung liquidity risk arises when an institution is unable to convert its assets into cash quickly enough to meet short-term obligations. No? So, hindi mo mabenta. So, wala kang cash. So, in the context of education institutions, particularly those with significant non-liquid holdings such as land, buildings, or long-term investments, no, liquidity risk becomes a critical concern when urgent financial demands arises. May pera ka pero hindi mo nasa long-term investment, no? So hindi mo ba yung kukuha ka agad? So importante na may cash kayo. So itong issue na to, this is often overlooked until a crisis strikes, no? Such as sudden drop in enrollment. Okay? So delay in government subsidies, wala pa yung pera. Like for example, we experienced this, even State University experienced this during the first implementation of RA 10931, yung libre yung mga estudyante. Pagkatapos, hindi naman nabigay lahat, ibigay kaagad, the DBM was not able to download the money to state universities. So many state universities were not able to pay the salaries of their part-time faculty members, mga job orders on time. Okay? So sa amin, sa yung former university ko, we are fortunate because we are very liquid. No? Sabi ko nga sa inyo, nung umalis ako doon as president, iniwan ko 1 billion. Nasa libreta de banko natin yan. Okay, so very liquid ang university, which is important. Kasi ito yung mga sudden shock, no, sa organization. Okay, so yung mga need to go for yung mga emergency repairs, wala kang pera, wala pa yung subsidy ng gobyerno, mahirap yun. Okay, so kaya nga ako, this is my practice that I, when I was still the president, I always look into the cash balance of the university. Pag bumaba na yan sa 500 million, medyo kabado na ako dyan. Sabi niyo malaki, kasi malaki yung university na ang laki ng operation cost namin. No? Ang kuryente namin, mga 30-35 million per year. Okay? Compared to other universities, yung 3 million nila isang taon na yun. Kami 3 million isang buwan. Okay, so kaya malaki. And then we have more than 600 non-regular. So if you are not liquid, wala kayong pambayad sa sweldo ng teachers. Malaki ang problema natin pagka ganun. Okay? So ang common example natin dito, yung nabanggit natin kanina, the school owns a substantial land or real estate, which, of course, these are valuable on paper, but cannot be sold or mortgaged quickly enough to generate immediate cash. No? So, kaya nagkakaroon ng problema. Okay? So, kaya it is very important that the university or the organization is liquid. Okay, so another is when going back to the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted tuition payments, some of these schools, many private schools, face difficulties, in covering operational expenses, and hindi sila makabayad sa mga teachers nila. Although technically, they are rich. Okay? Kasi madami silang malaking lupa nila. Madami silang mga buildings. But hindi yun naging liquid during that time. Okay? So, of course, kailangan natin dito, sino bang bibili during the pandemic? Wala ng pera ang mga tao. So, and then of course, people would want to hold their cash. No? Well, hindi nga bumibili kasi wala silang pambili. Yung may mga pera, ayaw nilang ilabas yung pera nila. Okay? Kasi nga, because of unforeseen circumstances during that period. Okay? Okay. And then, isang example dito, no? Should I give the name of the university? Hindi ko nabibigay ang pangalan ng university. Pero, this is a university in Manila that owns valuable real estate in Manila. Okay? So, ang laki ng lupa nila doon. So, while financially stable, overall, this university disclosed that the pandemic caused liquidity pressures due to deferred tuition payments and rising operational cost. Diba? Walang tuition fee increase. Yung tuition, instead na full payment ay deferred payment, staggered payment. Pagkatapos, nag-inflation. Ang laki ng inflation. So, that led to very high operational cost. Kaya may problema sila. Okay? So, kahit meron silang, although they have the fixed asset, those could not be, easily tapped to resolving short-term financial strain. Kaya liquidity is very important. Liquidity risk. Okay? So, okay mag-invest, pero dapat liquid ka. Okay? Next, of course, to mitigate yung liquidity risk, institutions adopt strategies such as maintaining emergency cash reserves or revolving credit lines, periodic asset reviews to identify convertible holdings. So, dapat, forward-looking ka, okay, as leader, no? So, yung pandemic naman stayed for 3-4 years. So, dapat first, pa lang ng pandemic, nakita mo na, nahihirapan kayo, na-forcing mo na kung ano yung dapat mong ginagawa. Ensuring part of the endowment or fund is highly liquid, and then establishing contingency funding agreement with banks or donors. Okay, so yung reserve fund is also a strategy to manage liquidity issue. Okay. So, let us proceed naman to the discussion of operational risk. Okay? So, ano ba yung tinatawag natin na operational risk? Okay? So, operational risk refers to the possibility of financial or reputational loss resulting from internal processes, systems, or human error or deliberate misconduct. So operational risk. So again, possibility of financial or reputational loss resulting from internal processes, weak ang internal process mo, yung system mo, o kaya hindi maganda talaga yung sistema ng university, human error or deliberate misconduct. Yung nagnanakaw sila sa university. Okay, so operational risk yun. Like for example, I know one university, no? They have a functioning biometric system. Okay? Pero, libre nga yung biometric system na yun. It was developed by one of their employees. And it is running for more than 10 years or 1 decade. Pero dahil sa gusto nilang may nag-alok sa kanila ng isang mas maganda raw na biometric system. But the university cost 4 million plus. Okay, binili nila yon. Of course, alam niyo na kung anong ibig kong sabihin dyan. Okay? So, why spend 4 million on something which is already functional? Diba? So, dapat hindi nyo gagawin yon. No? So, kung nasa gobyerno kayo, isipin nyo na kayo ay more of service. Huwag yung isipin yung personal gain. Kasi may mga yun sinasabi na deliberate misconduct, no? So, ito, of course, yung in education institution, this risk often manifest through inefficient administration, no? Di marunong mag-isip. Okay? Di marunong manghinayang sa pera ng gobyerno. Kaya nga, may mismanagement of funds. Imagine, a functional system na libre, bibili ka ng 4 million. So, that's a no-no to me, no? Weak internal controls or fraud. Okay? Particularly in, sensitive areas like financial aid distribution, procurement, and payroll system. Yung procurement na yan ang isang source ng fraud. Okay? So, ito, may isang case. This is about educational assistance program. Okay? So, this happened in 2018 and yung regional COA revealed anomalies in the distribution of financial assistance under the education assistance program in some state universities. So, anong ginagawa nila dito? Diba? Nakakagalit pag may ganitong mga nababalitaan ka. Okay? So, yung disbursements were found to have made to non-qualified recipients. or without proper documentation, and in certain instances, funds were diverted or released without validation of beneficiary enrollment. Parang ghost students. Okay? So, paano nangyayari to, no? So, these failures were, largely due to the lack of monitoring mechanisms, poor coordination between finance and admission offices, and manual documentation, which is susceptible to tampering. Okay? So, nangyari yan na, or kaya minsan sasabi nila may estudyante, wala namang estudyante. O kahit hindi beneficiary, nakakuha ng benefits. So, that's a no-no because this is government fund, this is our money, and we have to be prudent spending those money. And of course, the management should be, competent enough to know this kind of fraud. Okay, so yung operational risk, it also includes risk from cyber security breaches, no? In student record system, human resource mismanagement, yung mga cyber attack, no? Operational risk din yan. Sinira ang system mo. Okay? Kasi hindi protected yung hindi efficient yung cyber security mo. Okay? Or poorly executed transitions to online platforms, and these are seen during the pandemic. So these risks are internal and usually preventable through stronger governance, auditing practices, and automation. Okay? So, paano natin mamimitigate itong risk na to, no? So, regular internal, wait for a moment. Ilan. Okay, how are we going to mitigate this risk? One is to one regular internal audit. It is important, no, that we have this regular internal audit, and the auditor must be strict. For me, strict auditor is good. Okay. Segregation of duties in finance departments. So, wag magalo-halo ang ano. So, again, structure ito ng organization. Use digital record systems with traceability, digital records with traceability, staff training on fraud detection and ethics. It is important we have this kind of staff training, and then adoption of enterprise risk management framework. Okay? So, importante yan in mitigating those kind of risk. Okay? So, I think yung reputational risk, no, in another kind of risk is reputational risk. Okay? So, reputational risk in educational institution, this refers to the potential harm to an institution's public image and credibility due to perceived misconduct, unethical behavior, or administrative failure. So, among the most damaging triggers, no, of reputational risk is the misuse or mismanagement of funds, particularly when such actions involve donations, scholarships, or government subsidies. Education institutions, of course, kahit naman public or private, we rely, although tuition is free for state universities and colleges, we rely heavily on our reputation, di ba? To attract students, faculty, donors, and grants. Remember, during my first discussion on the framework of institutional development, institutional transformation and development, meron doon na image enhancing. Okay? So ito yung reputation. Okay? So our reputation, our image is at risk if there is misuse or mismanagement of our funds. Okay? And we cannot attract, donors. We cannot even attract students if, the university became known for corruption or mismanagement of funds. Yan ang nakakahiyang nangyayari sa mga universities. Okay? So, for example, dito sa Philippines, no, there are several controversies that surface involving alleged fund mismanagement by school administrators. Okay? Halimbawa, yung mga unliquidated student development funds or misappropriate PTA contributions. No? May mga ganyan, di ba? I know that you have heard of an incident wherein PTA contributions were mismanaged by the principal. Okay? So, while these cases are often localized, they generate public backlash and can affect the broader institution standing in the community. Ay, okay dyan, corrupt yung principal dyan. Okay, mag-enroll dyan, corrupt yung president dyan. Okay? So, merong my case in 2021. This is in Metro Manila. So, ang napareport noon, because of mismanagement of funds, the donors withdrew their donation. After a whistleblower revealed that scholarship funds had been diverted to administrative bonuses. And then, of course, ito, nagalit syempre, of course, the alumni and PTA members were very angry during that time. Okay? So, internationally, hindi naman to exclusive lang sa Pilipinas. Everywhere there is corruption, no? And this can lead to lawsuits and mga regulatory sanctions. Sa akin, mas okay yun na there are regulatory sanctions. Okay, so how are we going to mitigate our reputational risk? Number one, practice financial transparency, including regular donor reporting. So, i-broadcast mo. Ito yung pera natin, ito yung ginagastos natin for these activities, etc. Pero pag hindi ka sa mga meetings nyo, hindi alam kung magkano na pera natin. So I think there is, for me, that is a very big question mark. Because people should know. Para kung kailangan mo ng funding, you can get the support from the donors, from alumni, maybe even from faculty, di ba? Pero kung hindi mo sinasabi yung kulang, parang may tinatago ka pa. Okay? So, practice financial transparency. Implement ethical fundraising policies and spending controls. Maintain crisis communication plans to manage public perception. Okay, so ito mga to, pumutok pa lang, nag-conclude na yung mga tao. Kumbaga, pusok pa lang, nagkukonklud na yung mga tao. So, you should have a crisis communication group. Okay? And this should manage public perception. Okay? So, may mga strategies na dapat ginagawa ng ganyan so that the university will not be affected. Okay? So, you will become future administrators. And therefore, it is important, no? It is important that you protect the image of the organization. Okay? So, number 4, uphold strict compliance with audit requirements and regulatory standards. No matter how difficult it is to comply with the audit requirements, you have to comply because that is also your own protection. Okay? So, I think I have already discussed the different types of risk. So let us now proceed to the risk identification in the context of education. Okay? So, ito, kasi alam natin kung ano yung risk. So, dapat, paano ba natin siya i-manage? So, kailangan ma-identify natin. You have to identify first the risk before you can manage it. Okay? So, risk identification is the foundational step in financial risk management, particularly crucial in education institutions where financial decisions intersect with public accountability, long-term mission delivery, and of course, yung sinasabi ko kanina, public perception of the institution. Okay, so educators in administrative and leadership roles regularly engage in strategic budgeting, allocation of grants, tuition setting, and oversight of fundraising. So these responsibilities expose schools and universities to various risks that, if not properly identified and monitored, can compromise, both operational continuity and educational quality. Okay? So, i-highlight ko yun kung you are not able to manage the risk, it will affect yung operational continuity. Wala ka ng pera. And of course, wala kang pera, the quality of education will be affected. Okay? So, one of the most pressing risks is declining enrollment. Diba? So, pag decline enrollment mo, risk na talaga siya. Diba? Which directly affects tuition-driven revenues, especially in private institutions. Kasi nga, libre ang kolehiyo, ang state university. So, this issue was amplified in the COVID-19 pandemic. It was during the COVID-19 pandemic, where a reported 3 million learners were unenrolled in formal education between 20 to 21. This is according to DepEd 2021. So this decline severely impacted the cash flow of private schools, many of which rely on per student income, di ba? For operational viability. Ako kino-compute ko yan. Kahit SUC kami, kino-compute ko. Ilan estudyante, magkano income namin, magkano ang gastos namin on a per student basis. Kaya nga, ang strategy is if the maximum number of students that can be accommodated in one class is 50, maximize the number. Okay? So, ayoko nung maximum ay 50, o kaya optimum ay 45, tapos 40 lang kayo. No. Kasi it has financial implication. Okay? So, another significant concern is the cutting of grant funding, especially for public universities running externally funded research or outreach program. So, example, yung CHED, if they reduce certain research funding components in 2021 due to budget realignments, during the COVID-19 as part of the COVID-19 response. Okay. So, universities dependent on CHED's K-12 transition grants were left scrambling to reallocate resources or scale down research operations. Okay? So, again, ang isa pa, yung donor withdrawal due to scandals or reputational harm. Okay? So, ito, di ba, sabi ko nga, you have to manage the image of the university so that you can attract more donors. That is your leverage, okay? The good image of the university. But if the university has no good image or you have bad image, then forget about getting donors, yung mga donors natin, they often demand transparency and ethical governance, okay? So, yung local example includes, for instance, yung mga alumni groups natin, they are withdrawing their donations after controversies regarding administrative misuse of school funds or alleged lack of consultation in major financial decisions. So, hindi sila magdodonate dyan pagka ganyan. Okay? And then, this risk, mas na-pronounce, this risk is more pronounced in religious and community-based institutions where trust is a major currency for sustaining philanthropy. So, philanthropy. So, kung halimbawa at yung mga religious organizations, so nagkaroon sila ng scandal in misusing their fund, may problema sila dyan. Okay? And then finally, i-identify nila yung cybersecurity threats. And this is targeting financial and student records. Diba? Yung, alam naman natin, nababalita na hack ang website ng itong university. In 2022, meron, kahit kami sa university namin, we reported ransomware attack that temporarily disabled, access to several academic and administrative systems, including records related to tuition and grants. Ang masama ngayon, pagka na-hack yung system mo, tapos hindi kayang gawin ng mga IT experts mo, tapos wala ka sa cloud, okay? So, kaya nga importante rin for me, importante rin yung somebody is managing your system 24/7. Because as a university, I do not know kung ma-manage talaga yan ng 24/7. Okay? So, may mga ganyan, mga ransomware attack. Okay? So, as schools, of course, we have to digitize. Okay? We have to digitize our financial and academic operations, pero ang exposure natin sa cyber attacks, data breaches, and IT disruptions, tumataas, is increasing. And this highlighted the need for both technological and policy level safeguards. Okay? So if your university is not an expert yet in cybersecurity, you have to, and you have this database, big database, you have to hire an expert, okay? Or procure a system that is cyber security proof system, although there is no such thing as cyber security proof system, okay? So talagang magagaling ang mga hackers, okay? So, I will be discussing the impact of RA 10931 in the operation of the university. Okay. Okay. So this is part of the risk identification and education. So titingnan natin ngayon, ano ba yung impact ng RA 10931, okay? So sabi natin kanina, yung risk identification, this is a foundational process in financial risk management, okay? Kailangan ma-identify yung risk. And this allows the education institutions to, proactively recognize and prepare for potential threats that could disrupt their operations. Okay? So, yung context ng, in the context of the Philippines, private universities are increasingly exposed to complex set of financial risks that require deliberate attention and institutional foresight. So one of the major source itong emerging risk na to is RA 10931 or the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education. This was enacted in 2017. So while the law aims to provide tuition-free education, state universities and colleges, and uses local universities and TESDA programs, it has inadvertently posed significant financial and operational risk for private higher education institutions. Okay? So, ano nangyari after may RA 10931? Number one, declining enrollment and revenue. Okay, so declining enrollment and revenue. So after its implementation, there was a sharp decline in enrollment, particularly among low-income students who migrated to public institutions that offer free tuition. Okay? So, according to Cocopeya, ang sabi nila, private HEIs estimated a 10 to 15% drop in enrollment in the years following RA 10931. Okay? So, although meron namang test program no, sa RA 10931, students in both private and public institutions, access to these funds has been problematic. Ito yung sabi natin na compounding risk in financial aid and fund management. So, yung concern ng mga private universities, yung delay about the TES, Tertiary Education Subsidy reimbursements, and unclear eligibility criteria. And then this results in, budgeting complications and credit risk, as schools cover tuition fees in advance, waiting for government disbursement. Okay? So, pero kinonfirm naman ito ng CHED na there was a delay. Of course, maybe because of institutional issues then. Wala pang malinaw na, wala pang implementing rules and regulations. So, kung meron man, how to operationalize these implementing rules and regulations. Okay? So, kanina pa natin dinidiscuss yung donor withdrawal and reputational risk. Because of RA 10931, sabi ng mga donors, may libre naman sa gobyerno, dito na lang, no? And then, if, nawala, kay bumaba yung kanilang income. And then, nagkaroon sila ng cost-cutting measures that led to faculty retrenchment, mga program closures, facility downgrades, and then ito, naging reputational risk because this triggered the alumni criticism and donor withdrawal. Kasi nga, bumaba na yung quality of education nila, okay? So, yan. And then, of course, yung cyber and operational vulnerabilities. So schools are increasingly vulnerable to cyber attacks and operational disruptions. Okay, so dapat as universities observe digitizing, their systems, student portals, and financial aid processes. They face greater exposure to data breaches and IT failure. So without proper cybersecurity protocols, a ransomware attack could compromise financial records. So DS documentation or student payment logs, leading to both operational and reputational damage. Okay? So, bakit it is important to identify the risk? Okay? So, given these realities, diba, that are existing in the system, existing in the institution, the need for comprehensive risk identification is more pressing than ever. Okay, institutions must monitor policy shifts like RA 10931, analyze enrollment patterns, assess financial dependency on public subsidies, and evaluate the robustness of internal control. So effective tools for this include risk mapping. Magbibigay ko ng example mamaya dun sa risk mapping, stakeholder consultations, and scenario analysis. And they help quantify. It is important that one, you identify and then you quantify the risk. Quantify the potential losses and trigger proactive strategies. Help quantify potential losses and, I repeat, no? we must quantify the potential losses and trigger proactive mitigation strategies. Okay, so yung measurement and assessment, no? There are how to measure and how to assess yung risk. So there are two tools, one qualitative and the other one is quantitative. Okay, so and of course, yung mayroon tayong scenario analysis. So yung qualitative risk mapping, SWOT analysis, and then quantitative, yung value at risk, estimates potential loss in the value of an asset, and then scenario analysis, evaluates multiple hypothetical financial solutions. Okay, so yung risk mapping. Okay, so yung qualitative, as what I mentioned, qualitative rules include, qualitative tools include risk mapping and then SWOT analysis. And these play a critical role in helping educational institutions identify, understand, and prioritize non-quantifiable risk. Okay, so unlike statistical models or financial ratios, which is part of the quantitative tools, ito, yung qualitative tools rely on expert judgment, stakeholder input, and contextual understanding, and making them practically useful in the education sector, where decisions often involve social, reputational, and ethical dimensions. Okay? So, ito yung tinatawag natin na risk mapping. Risk mapping is visualizing threats and prioritizing action. So it involves creating a visual matrix, no? Creating a visual matrix that categorizes risk based on likelihood or the probability. Let me go to the, okay. Likelihood or probability, no? Ito. Ito yung risk map. Okay, so let us proceed na to the risk map. Kasi ito yung likelihood or probability and impact or the severity. Okay, so mangyayari ba o hindi? Okay, o pag nangyari, ano yung impact? Yung severity of impact. Okay, so ito yung risk mapping. Ang risk map is a strategic visual tool, and this is used by organizations to categorize and prioritize risk based on two key dimensions. Sabi natin kanina, likelihood, how probable the risk is. Mangyayari ba o hindi? Okay? And the impact, the severity of consequences if the risk occurs. Okay? So, ito yung matrix na to. Matrix style visualization allows the decision makers to quickly identify which risk demand immediate action based on likelihood. So, kung di naman mangyayari, the probability of the occurrence of this risk is low, bakit mo naman siya, okay, probability is low, pero if it happens, the impact is severe. So, pa-prioritize mo ba siya? Or, if this will likely happen, but the impact is less. So, alin ang ipa-prioritize mo to address? So, it is important for you to, map the risk. Okay? So, ito nga, this is a visual style visualization and allows the decision makers to quickly identify which risk demand immediate attention, which requires monitoring, and which can be deprioritized. Okay? So, in education institutions where risk span financial, operational, reputational, and technological domains, risk mapping provides a structured approach to decision-making. For example, yung sinasabi natin kanina, data breach of student records. Okay? So, given the rise in digital learning and cloud-based student information systems would likely be classified as high in impact and high likelihood. Kasi nga nasa database ka. So, yung data breach doon sa student records is high, and the likelihood is high, and then the impact is also high. No? Bakit? Because it pertains the personal and official records of the students. Kapag nawala yan, ano mangyayari? Okay? So, these places, ito yung data breach of student records can be placed in the critical zone, no, of the risk map. So, prompting urgent investment in cybersecurity infrastructure, IT audits, and policy reforms. O, example naman, yung campus flooding due to typhoon. Okay? Ito, kahit na potentially damaging and the likelihood is low, but the impact is high, no? Particularly for institutions outside typhoon-prone regions. For example, sa amin, sa Region 3, sa Bulacan, for example. Campus flooding before, high ang likelihood and high impact. Kasi pag nagbaha sa school, siyempre walang pasok, no? So, affected ang quality of learning. So, pinaayos ng university. Okay? So, yung likelihood of the occurrence is low and therefore, mababa na rin yung kanyang impact. Okay? So, may mga dapat pinag-aaralan yan. Okay? So, ito, pwede mo siyang ilagay doon sa contingency planning zone. So, indicating the need for emergency preparedness rather than immediate structural overhaul. Okay? So, kung hindi typhoon prone, pero kung typhoon prone, hindi mo siya pwedeng ilagay doon sa contingency planning zone. Ilalagay mo siya doon sa critical zone also. Because pag may flooding, affected ang mga estudyante, affected ang learning, which is, you know, for educators, dapat priority yung learning. Okay? So, kaya nga, the power of the risk map lies in the clarity and actionability. Okay? So, it transforms abstract risk into concrete priorities and serves as a communication tool for, of course, the board, the finance committee, and of course, the academic council. So it also aligns institutional resources with the most pressing vulnerabilities, supporting resilient and evidence-based governance. So risk mapping, importante yan. Okay? So ito, may isa akong example dito, although hindi masyadong malinaw, no? So ito yung impacts doon sa vertical, meron kang impact, low, medium, high. And then sa likelihood, low, medium, high. Okay? So pagka yung halimbawa, yung data breach, kaya campus flooding, saan natin siya ilalagay, no? Kung ilalagay natin ang campus flooding sa likelihood na high, kasi mababa yung lugar nyo. Pero ang impact naman niya, saan ba natin ilalagay? For me, kung flooding yan, affected, sa high ko din siya ilalagay. Okay? Data breach, pwede siya sa medium, di ba? Hindi naman laging, kung maganda yung security mo, pero hindi ko siya ilalagay sa medium din ng impact. Okay? High din ang impact niyan. Kahit na low ang kanyang likelihood, pero cybersecurity kasi, depending on the security features of your system. Kahit low siya, the impact is still high. Okay? So, pwede mo siyang ilagay dito sa ganitong klase ng presentation. Okay? So, halimbawa, yung high likelihood, high impact zone. Yung declining enrollment, of course, nakalagay high likelihood, high impact yan. No? Critical zone siya, di ba? Over-dependence doon sa public subsidies. So, nasa critical zone yan. Kasi kung walang subsidy given by the government, affected ng operation mo. As long as the operation is affected, medyo mahihirapan talaga. No? Nasa laging high yun. Okay? Tapos, merong yung medium likelihood, yung kapag high likelihood, medium impact, meron siyang, it is creating budget strains and cash flow risk, especially for tuition-dependent institutions. Yung medium likelihood tsaka medium impact, halimbawa, loss of faculty to public universities, and this is attributed to job security and funding differences. Reputational risk from service cutbacks due to program downsizing or lack of innovation. So medium likelihood lang yan and medium impact. Okay? So yung program closure due to budget strain. Okay? So fewer students mean lower revenue and risk of cutting low enrollment program. So yun yung ibig sabihin ng mga high likelihood, high impact, high likelihood, medium impact, medium likelihood, medium impact, or low likelihood pero medium impact, low likelihood, high impact. Okay, so maybe you can, you can in your own respective organizations, you can draw dito sa risk map na to. You can prepare your own risk map, okay, and determine whether your organization is nandun ba siya sa critical zone o wala naman, no? Wala naman siya sa critical zone. Okay? So, yung another is SWOT analysis. We are all familiar with SWOT analysis. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay? Again, this is a foundational qualitative tool, and this is widely used in academic institutions, no? In the context of risk management, the SWOT analysis provides a structured way for school administrators to identify where their institutions is most resilient and where it is most vulnerable. So this analysis informs decisions on resource allocation, policy reforms, and strategic planning, particularly under conditions of uncertainty or change. So, pwede kasi internally, siyempre, yung strength is internal, weakness is internal also, opportunities and threats are external to the organization that are affecting the internal, okay? The behavior of the internal of the organization. So, yung halimbawa dito, yung strength might include highly accredited academic programs, experienced faculty, mga loyal alumni network, o strong technological infrastructure. Okay? So, itong mga assets na to, yung mga strengths, they become essential in mitigating emerging risks, such as relying on a well-developed learning management system to transition smoothly to remote learning during crisis. Okay? Kasi nga, experienced faculty, no? Highly accredited program. So, more or less, pagka ganito ang strength ng organization, ready siya. More or less ready. Okay? So, at the same time, yung weakness naman niya, over-dependence on tuition, outdated administrative systems, and limited faculty development programs. This weakness, pag ganito yung weakness mo, you are prone, you are exposing the school to operational, financial, and reputational risk. Okay? So, halimbawa, school lacks digital record keeping. Okay? So, ito, you are more susceptible to fraud or data breaches. Okay? Tapos, yung externally naman, yung opportunities, you have to assess, the opportunities that can be leveraged to improve resilience or diversify risk. So this could include expanding to online programs, establishing partnerships with industry for internships, or accessing yung CHED, TESDA, the OST grant. So, yung mga opportunities na to can offset the enrollment losses, no? Or declining revenue caused by RA 10931, which offers, alam naman natin, free tuition. Yung threat naman ito highlights, yung threat, for example, donor fatigue, reputational scandals, cyber attacks, and natural disasters. So, ito, caused by external forces. And hindi na siya doon sa, because of RA 10931, but it can exacerbate, no, the impact to the organization. Kasi nga, because of, you know, donor fatigue and yung mga reputational scandals. Okay, so by integrating these 4 dimensions, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and analyzing it in SWOT analysis, helps the leaders to visualize the risk environment more holistically. Kasi kita mo yung loob, kita mo din yung sa labas. Okay? So, it supports strategic discussions about where to invest, what to monitor, and what vulnerabilities need urgent mitigation. So, for instance, the school might leverage its strong alumni network, strength nila, and market demand for health science graduates, which is an opportunity to develop new scholarship fund, thus reducing the dependency on delayed disbursement. Okay, and then remain competitive with public HAIs. Okay, so in sum, yung SWOT analysis is not just a planning exercise, but a core decision-making tool. Okay, in the risk management strategies for educational institutions. So it aligns institutional strategy with risk realities, ensuring that schools are not compliant and competitive, but also agile and resilient in the face of change. So agile is very important. Parang you can easily adapt, you can easily make decisions when there are challenges in the organization. Okay, so as part of the exercise, I want you to make SWOT analysis of your school in the context of risk management. Okay, so ano yung strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that can affect your financial management. Okay, and that can increase or decrease the risk of in finances, in your organization. Okay, so another is quantitative tool, although this is quite complex, but ito lang i-discuss lang natin anong meaning nila, but I will not be discussing in detail yung mga quantitative tools in financial risk management. Okay, so this is value at risk. Yung pag sinabi nating value at risk, it estimates the maximum potential loss that an institution face on an investment or budget item over a specified period of time given a certain confidence level. So kami, paano ba namin mina-measure yan? Pwede yan measure sa what will be the value of your investment given this interest at a certain period of time, So, pwede namin siyang i-compute yung mga net present value. Hindi naman namin ito ginagawa for risk, pero binavaluehan namin yung resources, for example. What is the net present value of this plantation given this interest and for certain number of years? Okay, so ginagawa namin yan. Okay, so ito kasing value at risk originally used in banking and asset management. Okay, pero ginagamit na rin ito ng universities with endowments or investment for portfolios. For example, a private university in the Philippines invested 10 million, okay, in a balance fund and could use 95% 1 month value at risk to estimate the losses will not exceed 5 million in 95 out of 100 months. So, medyo, I do not want to complicate I do not want to complicate your life, but by discussing in detail the value at risk. Kami, meron kaming net present value, meron kaming swell expectation value to compute the value of the resources in the future using this interest rate. Okay? Stress testing evaluates how institutional finances would respond under extreme or unlikely but plausible adverse conditions. Okay? So, halimbawa, there is a 30% drop in student enrollment. And then, merong 10% tuition fee rolled back due to government intervention or a 6-month delay in the disbursement of government subsidies. So, ito, pagka ganyan, nagkakaroon sila ng stress test, no? To estimate their liquidity positions. Diba sabi ko kanina, it is important that liquid. And then, halimbawa, nag-persist pa yung lockdown. Ako, actually, ang understanding ko, kasi that was the final examination. I said, next week, okay. The lockdown started on March 14, di ba? So sabi ko, sige, next week na lang. Pero wala nang next week na nangyari. Okay? So ito, expose the weaknesses such as insufficient cash reserves or over-dependence on a single revenue stream. And this prompted emergency cost containment plans. Okay, so dapat meron kayong stress testing. Stress testing on the finances. Okay? And then meron din kayong scenario analysis. This expands on stress testing by exploring a range of hypothetical conditions. Normally, mathematically, you can do it, no? You can simulate and then you can put values, tapos it will generate results, okay? Mathematical modeling, okay? So, pero itong scenario analysis, unlike stress testing, which yung stress testing normally models a single worst case situation. Yung scenario analysis helps the administrators prepare for multiple futures by varying inputs like government policy, donor behavior, or even inflation rate. So, pwede mong gamitin. And then, pwede ka mag-vary na mag-vary ng mga variables, no? Okay, so yung mga test na mga variables that you will be using in the scenario analysis. Okay? Halimbawa, 3 cases, no? Status quo with gradual enrollment recovery, yun ang scenario 1 mo. Number 2, sudden loss of TES subsidies under R1891. Tapos number 3, surge in enrollment online due to aggressive digital marketing. Okay? So, maggagawa ka ng mga scenarios dito. And tingnan mo kung anong mangyayari doon sa ano magiging result. And then you can use that as a basis for decision making. Okay. So, hindi ko na-discuss to. Okay, so let us proceed to the risk mitigation strategies. Okay? So, dapat maintindihan muna yung risk. We have to understand the risk. Okay? And then, ano naman yung mga, I think na-discuss na natin to kanina para siguro doon sa first presentation, no? So, I mentioned about the mitigation strategy. So, diversification, hedging, insurance, and internal control. So, i-discuss lang natin ng mas konti pang lalim. Okay? So, yung diversification involves spreading financial exposure across multiple programs, departments, or investment types to reduce vulnerability to any single failure. Okay? So, pwede naman na if the university relies solely on tuition, ito high risk siya if the enrollment drops due to external shocks. Okay? So, pwede namang mag-diversify. Yung example na yun, if you are relying mainly on tuition, you will be directly hit. Okay, but if the university has diversified revenue sources like may mga short-term certificate programs, corporate training partnerships, mga research grants, donor endowments, ano sila, mas insulated sila. They are better insulated from enrollment volatility. Okay, so in financial investments, diversification across low-risk funds, equities, and liquid assets also help safeguard the university's endowment funds from market shocks. Okay, para din yan, do not put all your resources in just one basket. Yun ang sinasabi ng diversification. Dapat may diversified sources of revenue ka. Okay, so hedging is more technical financial strategy often used by larger universities with substantial investment or exposure to market variables. So it involves using financial instruments such as derivatives. So ito yung mga options or future contracts to reduce risk exposure. No? Halimbawa, an institution anticipating foreign exchange risk for international grants or equipment purchase might hedge against currency fluctuations by locking in future exchange rates. Okay? So, common ito sa North America and European institutions, pero yung Philippine universities with international programs or endowment portfolios are gradually exploring hedging as part of advanced treasury management. Okay? Then, merong insurance, of course. Pwede itong insurance, like for example, insurance sa mga buildings, yan. Kasi, di ba, in-insure natin yung mga buildings natin sa GSIS, importante yun. Mga kotse dapat naka-insure, no? Importante yan. Faculty dapat naka-insure, no? And then, yung insurance natin sa cyber attacks, no? So, importante yan. Okay, and then, of course, yung internal control, no? So, internal control is important. So, this is the backbone of institutional risk governance. So, mga policies and procedures designed to ensure accurate financial reporting, prevent fraud, and enforce accountability. So, accountability is the key. Okay? So, in summary, mitigation strategies in the education sector must be both preventive and adaptive, whether through diversifying income, protecting assets with insurance, shielding against market exposure with hedging, or ensuring good governance through internal controls. Schools can significantly reduce their vulnerability to financial and operational disruption. And these approaches not only safeguard institutional resources, but also reinforce, public trust and long-term viability. Okay? So, yung mga regulatory and ethical considerations, education institution must comply with government audit standards, grant spending restrictions, and financial disclosure laws. Importante ito mga. Okay? So, regulatory and ethical considerations. Okay? So, I think yung ethical risk management, transparency in budgeting, and avoiding conflicts of interest in funding decisions. So, basta transparent, basta responsible tayo, accountable tayo, maiiwasan natin yan, yung risk, okay? And then, how are we going to mitigate, ethical risks? Ito, kailangan may code of ethics and conflict of interest policy for administrators and trustees, publicly accessible budget reports and audit summaries, regular third-party audits, and ethics training for finance committees. So ethical risk management is not merely about avoiding wrongdoing, but about cultivating a culture of trust and fairness. So in education, where moral leadership is expected, upholding ethical standards in financial governance is not just good practice. It is essential. Okay? So I would like to conclude my dollar sign mo. My presentation, my lecture on this. Educators are not only stewards of knowledge, but also of resources. So by understanding financial risk, they become better prepared to safeguard the integrity, sustainability, and impact of their institutions and programs. Okay, so this is my concluding thought. This is not the conclusion of the lecture, but my concluding thought. Okay, so I think that's the lecture on basic financial risk management for educators. Again, yung SWOT analysis for your school, that will be a part of the activity, and it will be posted in our class.